Hello guys, welcome to what should be called the Revive Stronger podcast very shortly. Going under not a rebranding really, just a renaming. Effectively, in my eyes, the Revive Stronger brand is becoming strong enough to kind of get rid of needing to be associated with macros, bodybuilding and powerlifting. People already hear Revive Stronger and hopefully associate it with those things already. So that's kind of the way I wanted to go with things. If you're on Facebook, you'll probably notice some things have changed where we're being called revivestronger.com. And I just want to make it more of that's what we're about. We're revivestronger.com, and that's where people should come. But anyway, without going too into that, I am interviewing Pascal, who this episode, I think we were discussing beforehand, and if you've been following Pascal over the last kind of week or so, you may have noticed he's become a bit fatigued, and that is effectively what this episode is going to be very much talking about, dealing with fatigue while dieting, psychology, physiology, what you can do with your training, how it affects training, what you can do with your diet, what Pascal's been doing with Jeff, who has given him some things to help with this. And we'll just go into all of that. So, first of all, that fatigue, how's it going? Where are you with your training at the moment? You're deep into a mesocycle, or just finished?
No, it is the last week of this mesocycle here. It is my deload week. Had my first training session here today. Upper body went pretty awful. No, for real. I mean, in the past weeks, I already start with a normal bench, my training week. So it is always kind of a determiner how my whole training week will probably look like. And in the past 3 to 4 weeks, I was always getting into the gym, first session of the week, going onto the bench, and it was just feeling awful. It wasn't feeling comfortable. The movement felt off. It was feeling super heavy, even though I was perhaps using the same weight for a higher rep range the week previously. I wasn't then even able to hit it for a lower rep range on the same kind of RPE range. And this was all already kind of determined of how the week will probably be like.
So has that happened? How long has that been going on for?
For the past 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. And in the beginning, it's funny because I can remember that the last time we were recording this episode where I got interviewed by you, I was saying that I had a fabulous week where the first week was like I saw a massive weight drop, was around 78 kilograms as an average. And then the week after that, I seen a spike in weight again, and my weight kind of stalled since then. Which isn't that big of a deal. We talked about it in the past quite extensively, about that the scale weight isn't always the best to see what's been going on with your diet and your nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And especially if your training is going well, it could potentially be that you are making some gains along the process and you're holding a little bit of water because you are kind of stressed because the training is going so well and it provides such a big stimulus, for example. So it can have so many reasons to why your weight is actually stalling. So I wasn't really worried at all. However, then in the second week, so the week before, 2 weeks ago, the whole week I experienced again a stolen weight, but even, which was super odd, I saw a massive spike in my weight. I got again above 80 kilograms, which is kind of close to the beginning of my contest prep, and I was staying there for a couple of days actually. So I already felt that my digestive system didn't really work properly. So I felt like I was really having a lot of food in my whole digestive tract, that I was perhaps also a little bit stressed because I had a lot of work been going on lately. Had two exams at school, so this perhaps also caused a little bit of stress as well. But training in general, it felt good. I mean, it's not that when I'm saying that my bench felt like shit, that the whole training itself doesn't feel productive. It really did, because I was in a deficit. We dropped my carbs even a little bit lower to 250 grams, coming down from 275, because we wanted to keep momentum going. And even then, I felt like my training was good in the sense of that I felt the muscles I wanted to hit after each session. So, for example, my lower body session, I implemented heavy or heavy-ish squats and heavy-ish deadlifts again. And I told you, Steve, that in week 2 and 3, and 3 is always my overreaching week. In both weeks, I had DOMs in my quads, which is kind of a rare thing for me to happen. In both weeks, every single time after my lower body sessions, I was feeling the intended muscle parts. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. Also, when it came to my back training, also to my push training as well. So it was productive, the whole training sessions, but then again, this just accumulated a lot of fatigue. And the funny thing is that looking back now, 3 weeks ago, I felt awesome. All went well, all went as planned. Every single week, I saw my weight going down as an average. And now in the past 2 to 3 weeks, just my fatigue accumulated to a massive extent. And also my scale weight didn't really go down. So what we did was that, if the audience or the listeners can remember correctly, Jeff and I decided to delay my diet break, which we wanted to take as planned every 8th week of my contest prep, a little bit behind when I'm really need it, because of the fact that everything went that well. And I had a little bit of momentum going on, and we didn't want to interrupt it when it's not really necessary to take the diet break. So perhaps this caused then that I kind of, quote unquote, crashed now. Yeah, it is a little bit exaggerated, but last week I really, really felt fatigued. It was my overreaching week. It was the first week where I was only on 250 grams of carbs, which doesn't sound really that big of a difference compared to 275. But over the course of 11 weeks that I'm in dieting already, combine that with an overreaching week and outside stressors as well, it was perhaps a little bit too much. And then Jeff and I decided spontaneously, with the last check-in, to take the diet break now. And what we are actually doing now is I'm coming back to, I'm not quite sure if it is, but coming back to maintenance for 6 days. So what we did is actually only increase my carb intake to 350. All the other macronutrients stay the same, so 60 grams of fat and 200 grams of protein, and we dropped the cardio.
Completely gone.
It is completely gone. And funny enough, I have a hard time sticking to it, actually. Yeah, I'm a cardio bunny. It's out now.
Your cardio wasn't excessive though, was it? It was under 1,000 calories of list, wasn't it?
Totally. It was, we actually dropped it. Yeah, 3 weeks ago, we dropped it from 2 times 400 calories to 2 times 300 calories, because I was already reporting that I feel some kind of fatigue setting in, and that my, especially on those rest days where I'm doing my cardio sessions, I was starting to feel like the cardio is getting hard already. So what I did was, in the past, I did cardio on the Stairmaster, which is quite invasive. to some extent. And I exchanged it to something more uninvasive, such as sitting on the recumbent bike, which is really not hard at all. I mean, it takes a little bit longer for sure, but it's really not hard on your body, on your CNS, especially not, because I was reading there. I was learning while I was sitting there and just paddling quite slowly, heart rate at around 100. So really nothing big and stressful. And it already got really hard though. I mean, I was sitting there sweating like a pig. And I can tell you this, that it wasn't because it got warmer here in Berlin, but simply because my fatigue was really increased.
That's interesting. I mean, there's so many points there I wanted to touch on, but I didn't want to butt in,
Yeah,
because you were kind
sorry,
of on a
I
roll.
did
Yeah,
tell
it's all
you the
right.
whole story now, and we could end the show here now, actually.
Well, I want to know what your thoughts are for the coming week. But anyway, what I did want to touch on was it sounded like the biggest change from going from having a really successful week to then having a just highly fatiguing week. The biggest change I identified from that was essentially the exams for your school. It doesn't sound like anything else changed because, as far as I'm aware, your kind of cardio, nutrition, your training was staying pretty level after that first, where you basically decided, oh, this could be a diet week, but we're going to ride the momentum. And then as soon as you tried to ride the momentum, that's where you couldn't. There was no momentum to ride. Was it mostly, I guess it sounds like it was mostly outside stresses. So I know you picked up some new clients at Revive Stronger, which is awesome, but that brings with it more work, more stress, more things going on. And then you've also had exams. So I know those, I mean, you've been studying for them. I know doing exams is stressful. It doesn't matter what they are. They're always a stress and you have to plan for it, all those things. Is that all that mainly changed? Did everything else pretty much stay level in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can tell for sure that I'm a robot when it comes to my daily life. I get stressed when things aren't as I planned it to, as I intended to, especially. Um, which is really funny because in the past, when I was quote unquote younger, yeah, I'm turning 30 this year. When I was younger, I was always in the mindset of, yeah, I want to be spontaneous, I want to be flexible, and all that kind of stuff. Had this romantic thought that I want to work whenever I want to, and yeah, just do the day and or structure the day as I want to. But now it's simply absolutely completely different to how I imagined it when I was younger.
Don't lie.
I
Online
really,
coaching is a
yeah,
flexible job, man. Like, all we do is record this episode. The rest of the week, I'm down in Brighton on the beach,
yeah. I
sipping
mean,
on protein shakes and
I'm
tequila.
I'm always saying that I'm living in Berlin, but actually, I'm right now in Cuba. And after I record this episode, I will go down on the streets, have a cigar, and on the other hand, a Cuba Libre, of course, yeah, and just relax the whole day. Yeah. No, of course not. So I really like to have a structure. So at this time, I'm starting with my client updates, for example. At this time, I'm getting up early in the morning, having my coffee, then hitting the gym. After that, I have a meal, blah, blah. Yeah, so everything's planned
Mhm.
already. And if there's coming something up along the way, it isn't really that it interferes with my schedule because
Mhm.
I plan everything out. And I mean, you know me already. I'm really that German guy who's a control freak who wants to have everything scheduled and planned. And
Yeah.
if if you if you meet up with me, then you need to be on time. Yeah. And if you're not, I let's let's say, or let me put it this way, I don't appreciate it.
Can I tell you that this is a sideline? You would not. Charlotte, my girlfriend, the first time I called it a date, but she doesn't call it a date. The first time we met up, like outside of work, she was, I think, an hour and a half late, and we were going to the Natural History Museum, and yeah, I was just like, you live half an hour away. I had to come in an hour outside of London. Sorry, side story, but you would not have liked that. Actually,
No,
I did want to touch on symptoms. It sounds like we've kind of just talked about fatigue. You're feeling fatigued, but kind of go into kind of has it affected your sleep? Is obviously we've talked about your training performance. We already know it's impacted training performance. So sleep, hunger, general energy levels. Any other symptoms that you've personally been feeling? I know when I'm really fatigued, I just like want to lie down and eat. Basically, is what I do. But I don't do it. But I do want to.
For me personally, I stay active, so I don't really feel that my need is coming down. Perhaps it will come in the future when I'm getting leaner and leaner, and my body begins to fight me to some extent, or fights the diet in general. But I try to stay active also because I simply have so many things to do on a daily basis, with the work, with the school, then doing stuff for SBS Academy as well. And of course, there are other things in life that happen as well. So I try to stay active and I try not to let the diet influence anything around my daily life. What the symptoms I'm experiencing when I get fatigued or overreached is most often like I have a hard time staying focused. So we are always talking about having kind of quote unquote brain fog going
Mm-hmm.
on. And this is the most severe symptom I'm having actually. So, and this I especially experience while I'm working then. When I'm sitting alone in my flat in front of a computer, I get so easily distracted, which doesn't happen if I'm really like fresh, because I have the feeling that mental freshness is dependent on the physiological freshness as well. And I really feel like if I'm in an overreaching block, the first symptoms I have is not that my body is kind of fatigued, but more so my mind.
How's your
And
motivation to train? Is that kind of
it
are you
is going
motivated?
down.
Yeah.
It is going down, but yeah, a robot, the robot I am is simply I'm going into the gym no matter what. Even if I were, even if I was super drained and all that kind of stuff, and I knew that it will probably not be the best and productive training session, I would still go simply because I need it, simply because I need it in my schedule as well. Because I need to keep that rhythm going. I have this yeah planned out structure, so I need to get up in the morning, have my coffee, and then I need to hit the gym because otherwise the whole day will be messed up, and I don't know if I could get back into the groove. Into that working mindset as well afterwards, and I really need to have those small bits and pieces to yeah have kind of my structure and uh, have the ability to work afterwards. And um,
I think that structure that you're talking about as well is, and I'm actually going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this in my at the Mike Israel conference in my talk about basically fat phobia. This is one of the benefits of bulking, and kind of I talk about trying to sell people bulking or massing or gaining weight basically, and why it's not the worst thing is the fact it gives you so much flexibility in that when you're dieting, and I think you're kind of saying this, you need that structure, and it becomes more and more important as soon as you break it. Like if you eat maybe a couple of hours later than you're used to, if you get a couple of hours less sleep, or if you train a couple of hours different, that actually screws you up big time. Whereas when you've got excess calories, like your body's just like, meh, I can train any time, I'm full of energy, and the excess, like if you don't get enough sleep one night, like you can ride it out. Whereas when you're dieting, you cannot do that.
yeah.
So
And it's funny because I know kind of two types of people out there. So the ones who actually like to having a structure, and the ones who will be stressed out if their day is planned too much, and then they need more of a flexible approach to things, and they decide spontaneously how the day is actually going, which then would stress out the person who needs to have a structure in their life. So there are. I have the feeling that there are only those type of people and nothing in between, I think.
I think
And
bodybuilders, for the most part, are those structure freaks, aren't
yeah,
they?
totally. Absolute OCD.
And then obviously the brain fog. What about your sleep? Has your sleep been on point? Has that been worse? I feel like I've heard it's been worse from my end.
No, no. I mean, the sleep. I came from a background now where I had terrible sleep for 9 weeks, or I think even longer. So for me, if I sleep through the night, everything's fine. I mean, if I'm only sleeping then for 5 hours, that's still fine. I mean, I don't get up in the middle of the night to have something to eat or something. However, in the past two nights were kind of an exception, where I really got up in the middle of the night because I was ravenously hungry. And yesterday was simply because a client of mine, Shariana, shout out to Shariana, she had a powerlifting meet, competed at nationals, qualified for worlds, by the way. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And yeah, I was staying up late because I wanted to actually follow her journey, give her some feedback and recommendations when it comes to attempt selection. So I stayed up, yeah, my little bubble late, which was still early for other people. But I got up pretty early here in the morning, so I didn't really get that much of sleep. But it wasn't really like that my sleep got affected due to the diet. What I'm actually more experiencing right now, but this first happened since the diet break, that I mentioned it already, that I got ravenously hungry. And since I'm actually having that quote unquote diet break, I say quote unquote because I think we are going to touch on it in just a second, um, is that I really got hungry since then. I went really hungry, and I'm trying to fill myself up. And we had a consultation last week, I think, with someone living in Silicon Valley about web design and all that kind of stuff. And before we had this consultation, I told you that I had two cucumbers and
Two whole cucumbers, yeah.
two whole cucumbers and a 500-gram pack of tomatoes just to fill me up, just to kind of alleviate that hunger signaling that was going on.
That's yeah. It's really weird because we obviously know hunger is, for the most part, controlled by, we know, ghrelin and leptin, but it's mostly leptin
Yeah.
when we're talking about dieting. And as you have fat cells, they produce leptin. So as those come down, you produce less leptin, and so you're hungrier. And then as you're in a calorie deficit, your leptin levels are lowered as well. So they only come up when you come into like maintenance or a surplus. And that's very much to do with carbohydrate intake. So the fact is your carbs have come up, and so you'd expect leptin to come up. But obviously it hasn't. Well, you haven't noticed it come up that much. And
No.
obviously hunger is very, like, there's so many different things that go into it. But if we to just talk about leptin would be the wrong thing to do. But it is interesting. And in fact, I think we've spoken about it, or at least I have on past episodes where I've talked about my hunger going up. And I certainly have experienced the same thing in like diet breaks, where the first few days at least I have to keep a very like similar structure to my diet and just add on top of that, because otherwise I just get super, I get really, really ravenous. So I don't know if it's partly mental because you feel like, oh, you shouldn't be as hungry, or what it could be. I guess, has your diet changed much, like on paper? Does it look very much the same?
It is actually more robotic and controlled than before. I mean, I'm always eating the same meals at the same time, but Jeff actually wanted me to track everything quite meticulously for this week, just to make sure that we get a real idea what's going on, how the diet break will be for my whole system. So mentally and physiologically, and to also see if there are any spikes going on, and when the spikes are going on, that they aren't simply due to water retention, because I had some more sodium or more carbs on one day or the next, or had a late night meal compared to the other days. So we wanted to make sure that I eat at the same times, the same meal with the same sodium intake throughout the whole diet break, which is kind of a um, different thing or different method. I would actually do it. That doesn't necessarily mean I don't trust him, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't see the point in it, because I really do, but it simply means I would have done it differently. But yeah, we will see how that turns out. And I'm really excited actually, because I have my methods, and because I would have done it differently, I think I would always stick to that kind of structure. And now that I need to actually do it differently, perhaps it will open my eyes to some other methods to go about diet breaks. And I touched on it previously already, that we only increased my carb intake to 350, coming from 250. However, I need also to point out that 2 weeks ago, I was still at 275 grams of carbs per day on 5 low days. And then I had a massive, well, quote unquote, massive refeed on 2 days, where I bumped up my carbs to 460. So averaging, I think at the end of the week, it would be around about 300 grams of carbs. So what we actually did effectively is only raising my carb intake to 50 grams. And yeah, we will need to see how that turns out, because I'm still only at 2,700 calories of on a daily basis. And when you are looking at our website and our logs from the contest prep, you can see that my weekly average was at 2,550 for the entire contest prep up to that point. So effectively, there's only a rise for 150 calories in that diet break, which is
I guess
not
that was
not
the
that much.
quote unquote diet break,
Yeah.
in that a diet break traditionally viewed, or at least especially how we view it, is calories brought up to maintenance. And it
Or even
sounds,
slightly above.
yeah, kind of to really give the body a break. And I guess that's part of the difference there as well. It's effectively your diet break is kind of like, it's not a traditional diet break from our point of view, in that it's more structured, it's more restrictive in terms of you have to eat very much the same at precise times. Like, there's no flexibility there, and then it's not. You're probably still in a slight deficit from what you're kind of understanding, that you're maintaining on over 3,000 calories at the start of the diet, now being kind of a significant amount under that 2,700. So in terms of the being more precise with things, was Jeff's main reasoning for that just to make sure that when you're looking at this week, there was more, that you could be more sure of things, that there wasn't something else that was going on that was kind of disrupting things?
Exactly. He really wanted to point out that it's now really important to be kind of even more robotic. He also said and mentioned that he don't think that I'm not already doing that on a daily basis. But yeah, we just wanted to make sure that it's now on point, so that we can see what's been going on, and perhaps also with all the other factors or influencers, that we can say, okay, if there is a change, then it's definitely not because of nutrition, but then it's probably because of this and that stressor in your life, or because you haven't got enough sleep or anything. So really, everything when it comes to nutrition, you can
Take it out.
actually take out of the occasion. Um, that you know that if there are any changes, then it comes down to other things. And I think this is the main reason why it wants me to actually be really on point and really robotic. And I think I'm the type of person who you can actually do that kind of stuff with, because I'm already functioning well on being rigid on a daily basis, and I'm actually striving on stuff like this. I like to have a structure. I like to have control. Um, I like to have everything planned, and planning everything I had and structuring it even more now doesn't really stress me. So I think for people like me, you can actually do it, but I also could see a potential risk with doing it with a certain type of clients, for example, that this would simply take out the intention of a diet break, how I see a diet break actually, because as the name implies already, it should be a break from dieting. I mean, I would rather take them out for 1 or 2 weeks out of the deficit to give a physiological and psychological break, so that there are kind of hormonal reverses going on, that the negative adaptations are mitigated to some extent, so that you set yourself up for a successful long-term dieting as well. Um, And if you don't really take that break, then it's not actually really a break. And I think that the body is still in that stressed state, which then could cause perhaps some negative adaptations along the process, or that perhaps it isn't enough to reverse those negative adaptations, which then will show themselves even quicker. So it's the same when it comes to training, for example, when you take deloads, planned deloads like every fourth week. When you're always pushing super hard in the training sessions and you are pushing too hard in the first place, let's say you are overreaching already at week 3. So take a deload week 4, as the most programs are structured like, or every fifth week, for example, and then you didn't really take that deload as a deload is, yeah, so really to bring fatigue levels down, and you're still pushing too hard, um, you might perhaps fall into the risk that you're already overreached in the second week, and then you need to take the next deload a week prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps this is kind of counterproductive, because you will then not get the real benefits of your training session. And I think it is the same when it comes to nutrition, that if you need to take more diet breaks, because the diet breaks itself weren't as severe. I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, if it wasn't structured like it, that you come to maintenance or slightly above, where the body is actually able to reverse those negative adaptations and to have a break and be ready for the next 8, 10, 12 weeks maybe to push it hard again, then it could potentially be that you need to take another break in 4 weeks time, which then slows down the whole process in general, which then would be kind of a waste of time then to actually take that slightly higher caloric intake while you're still in a deficit and you're not able to get the benefits from an actual diet break.
It's really interesting. I'm very interested to see what the next steps for you will be, and if they are along our lines of thinking, it may well be a more like a bump in your calories for another week to give you an actual diet break. From the sounds of it, it does sound like it's kind of I know sometimes making people really precise with their nutrition and giving them more food can sometimes actually lead them to being more accurate and actually accounting for it. Whereas when you put people into like deeper deficits, then they start actually overeating because they're actually really hungry, and people are bad for accounting things. And they do like sneaky things that you kind of don't want them to do. And by giving them a bit more food, they actually aren't eating more food, they're actually eating less food because they're actually like, oh, that's something achievable. I don't need to sneak in that cookie and not actually account for it. I can stick to this. So I don't know if, I'm assuming that wasn't his line of thinking, but I could see how that could be a line of thinking.
And what I really want to stress here, because it always sounds so negative, or that I'm questioning his reasons behind it, and I want to say that I'm definitely not. He's my coach, and I'm trusting his judgments and his decisions fully. Yeah, because I think I did go to him as a coach, so I picked him. It was my decision, and I did it because I'm trusting him in the first place. So it's not that I'm questioning any of his decisions or something. I just wanted to say that my understanding of a diet break and how I would structure a diet break or implement it with one of my clients would perhaps, not always, of course, but most of the time look differently. But that doesn't necessarily mean that my approach is the right one. And also, Jeff has many years of experience with high-level athletes underneath his belt. So I'm super confident that he knows what he's doing, and that he has my best interest in mind, and that there is a strategy in mind. And yeah, this is something I just wanted to throw out there, because it could get the wrong, or people could get the wrong idea that all I'm saying is that I'm not trusting my coach, which I'm definitely am. I mean, I trust him fully, because otherwise I wouldn't have picked him as a coach.
I think it's important to reiterate that, reiterate, yeah, that is the right word, and to reinforce the fact that whether or not kind of you may be, I think it's absolutely fine and reasonable to question your coach and question their decisions, which I believe you have. And the key thing is, if they give you answers that kind of answers the questions, then you follow through, because you, like you said, you've put your trust, you've put your faith in them. And you're doing a disservice to not just yourself, but also them if you don't follow their practices, because you're paying them money and they're putting in their time and effort to give you these things. And I mean, if they didn't give you answers that were good enough or were kind of evidence, like if they didn't have answers for you, then fair enough, like go and find another coach. But if they have answers for you, then you need to trust it. You do need to trust that process, because a lot of these things, there's unknowns, and experience plays a big role. So no, I am glad you picked that up. And just in a bit of a summary, I guess, so the fatigue was kind of out of nowhere in a sense, but we might relate it to outside stresses with work and with just accumulation over time, I guess, would also be a factor. And then the way you've kind of gone about it so far with Jeff, to kind of drop some fatigue, is to really make sure the diet isn't what's kind of causing things to be a bit skewed on paper. Slight increase in calories, decrease, no cardio, and then training, you've just kind of gone along with it. So training is what it is. Yes. Other than that, that's pretty much how things are going, and it will be a case of see kind of what happens. And at this point, your weight's pretty much again stayed level. No changes
unfortunately.
There. Visually, any change?
I can't really tell, because perhaps I'm too biased right now. I'm too much invested in the fact that my scale weight hasn't come down, and thus could lead me to not seeing any differences, even though there perhaps are any. Mm-hmm. I'm just a human as well. I know some people would expect me not to be. I know I'm a machine, but no, it could potentially be that I'm simply not seeing the differences because I'm simply too much emotionally invested already in that given moment and that given process that I want to make visual changes. I want to see my skate weight coming down, and thus leading me to obviously overlook any changes in my physique, which might be there, but I can't really see them right now. Um, However, I must say that since I increased my carbs, I had 2 nights ago, I was standing in front of a mirror, taking some mirror selfies. No, that's not true. I was brushing my teeth actually. Was standing there topless. I was touching my body. So no, again, not true. Sorry, I'm going off tangent here
All
the whole
true.
time. And I had a high carb meal right before that. And it was the first time actually doing that contest prep where I saw that I was really filling out. I think it was the third day of my diet break or slightly higher carb intake. I was really filling out, and I there was really, I wouldn't say vascularity going on because I mean I'm still fat as fuck, and there isn't really a vascularity present yet. But I could see a lot of veins starting to pop out over my whole upper body, and which is a good sign, I think. And I didn't have it previously, so I would expect, due to signs of that, that I have improved or made some improvements in the past weeks as well. Um, but yeah, to summarize it, I think I'm too biased and emotionally invested right now to see any major changes, and I think we simply need to give it some more time to come to a conclusion, what happened, how everything went over the past weeks, and how to move forward now.
No, I mean, a lot of the time, like we've talked about before, we know about the delayed training effect. Sometimes you don't see the result of your hard work until, well, you don't until you let that fatigue come down, you let those adaptations take place. That may be, and that is what we'd assume is happening right now with yourself, is that time isn't wasted. This week hasn't been wasted. It'll just be a case of how do we allow these adaptations to kind of come to the floor because, yeah, it's just a difficult time. So it'll be really interesting to pick up in future weeks, see what's changed and what's happening. And I guess, yeah, for the next week, it will be you're checking in with Jeff Vetts fairly soon. And then, yeah, you'll see what you have to do there.
Yeah, totally. I want to start having some glute striations as well. All I want. All I
Um,
want for Christmas.
So what I would leave the listeners with this episode is, I guess, it has been a bit inconclusive, and a bit kind of not wishy-washy, but a bit like, so we don't really know what the conclusion is. Like, yeah, diet fatigue. You're taking this kind of rough diet break. We don't really know what's what, and it seems like a bit of a time like, yeah, there is going to be lots of unknown within dieting. Like, you're not always going to know what you should do, what you shouldn't do. There is going to be lots of testing that has to be done. You are going to question the process. So I think that is why we've just shown that even people themselves who are coaches who have been through lots of different experiences will question things. So I know you
Yeah.
want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take something away from the show, it is that there's a individual difference every single time. Every contest prep will also look differently. Of course, you are making experiences, but everything around your life changes as well. Your body changes because obviously you're not getting younger, um, which then also has an influence on how your body is reacting on perhaps training and your diet in general. And so every single contest prep and every single diet which you will undergo will look differently, and you need to still be on point, still take or collect data to make then reasonable adjustments along the way. And you can't expect all the diet or every time you're dieting to look exactly the same, because that's simply not the case. And additionally to that, I would say that diet breaks, if you are going to take some diet breaks, what I would always recommend you doing, I would actually plan them out, plan them and take them, even if you don't feel like it, even if there's momentum going on. There will always be the time where you will otherwise break down, and then you are standing along the road without you moving forward any longer. And if you're crashed, then it always is the point where it's already too late, and you should have taken that diet break 2 or 3 weeks ago already. So plan it ahead and take them, even though it is or might seem like a struggle in that given moment, but take them. I think you will have more out of it than delaying it and then crashing.
Mm-hmm. It's like a deload. You don't want to need it. You kind of want to not need it so that you can keep going.
Totally.
Awesome.
And I mean, crashing isn't fun. And yeah, I mean, that's all of it.
Crashing, you have to rebuild, whereas if you take a pit stop, you can keep going.
Yeah, I wanted to say, or end the show with something intellectual to say. But yeah, I can't.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else we want to leave the listeners with? I think this will go out on Tuesday, so we'll be having the My Kids Will Tell conference on the Saturday and Sunday. There are, as we are speaking, 5 tickets left. We're not going to discount them. We're not going to do any jazzy stuff. If we sell them, we sell them, and that'll be amazing. But we're fully pumped and raring to go for this conference.
Yeah.
It's literally going to be the highlight of my career. I posted maybe about it a couple of times, kind of saying how it's a real reckoning for me for Revive Stronger. And I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's listening for supporting kind of myself, for supporting the brand, now supporting me and Pascal. I want to thank Pascal, who I have thanked before, and it's an amazing feeling to be able to run it and get there. And obviously Mike, who won't listen to this, but I do want to thank Mike because he's obviously been pivotal in all of this. So yeah, super excited for that. It's going to be a good day, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to meet all the people who will attend on that giving day, to meet the Super Saiyan himself finally. And it's going to be an awesome weekend. And I mean, if you have the interest of participating at that seminar, you heard it yourself, there are still 5 tickets left. I mean, it is a one-time chance only. Mike said that what did he say? He posted something about that he had some groundbreaking new findings when it comes to hypertrophy.
So this is going to sound really cool. This is, I've spoken about it with him kind of off air, as it were. It's kind of nutritional concordance with your training. And effectively, this is kind of putting your nutrition and training and periodizing them together. So a way you can think about this is, because we've been talking about diet breaks, is you might take your diet break along with your deload, because that's going to be like an extra bump in recovery. So that's an example. He said he's made some things he's never thought of before, because he's been producing this material for us exclusively that no one else is going to get, apart from some inside people at Renaissance Periodization, which you'd expect.
So 4 people or something, no?
Yeah. So we're going to get some new, fresh content. And I don't know about the listeners, but as far as I'm concerned, there's very few people who are on the cutting edge of hypertrophy science as Mike. He absolutely lives for this stuff. And after the last conference, that was like training, nutrition, and recovery was basically what it was. There was basically half the conference went to hypertrophy because everyone was asking questions about it, because Mike is so clued up with it all. So yeah, I'm so excited for that. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Awesome. So yeah, on that note, we will leave it. There'll be links in the description box below so you can sign up. And as always, I don't think we plugged it this episode. If you do ever want to review, you want to ask questions, you want to see someone come on the podcast, anything like that, please let us know. Best place, you can kind of find us on Facebook, or go to the free Facebook group, which is called revivestronger.com now. That's where we kind of post most regularly, and we'll be able to get content out to you. So yeah, anyway, cheers guys, and take care.